So here I have a self-repairing basalt wall generator. It's pretty simple, redstone wise. It's just a lot of wire, repeaters, and torches, and then a bunch of pistons. The generation of the basalt happens because there's a lava source block chilling there, or at least there should be. There's not. It'll work regardless, but I'm gonna put one there. So the lava flows onto the soul soil, which is adjacent to this blue ice block. And when flowing lava is on top of soul soil, adjacent to a blue ice block, it generates basalt. So using that to my advantage, with a row of sticky pistons and a row of regular pistons, all hooked up to the same redstone clock over there, so that when activated, it pulls away the generated basalt and then immediately pushes it up one, which allows us to grab the next basalt that gets generated and repeat the process. In some of my previous models, I had an issue where the timing was just slightly off with the repeaters, and where sometimes basalt would get generated right there, which would of course prevent any new basalt from being generated in that column, meaning that the wall would stop. But that doesn't seem to be a problem with my current model here, but I still have these iron bars here underneath the lava source blocks just in case, so you can have easy access from underneath to destroy those unwanted basalt blocks. As far as it in action, I'll just turn it on. And when it reaches the piston push limit, then it just pushes the one basalt that is generated back and forth. At which point you can disable it to remove noise. And of course you can re-enable it anytime. So say a creeper blows a hole in your wall, then you can just turn it back on. And just like that, your wall's fixed. So currently I have it this big. I'm pretty sure it is 30 blocks long. So that way the, or maybe it's 31, I'm not sure, but the redstone should travel 15 blocks in either direction, starting from the center. Of course, there are ways to make it bigger. You could have another setup just like this, duplicated on either side. The redstone timer signals won't interfere because they're far enough away from each other that the signal doesn't propagate. So 2 independent timers. You could have a repeater set up, something like this, so that way the signal gets propagated. It doesn't mean your columns fall out of sync, but that doesn't matter as long as each column receives the proper length of pulse and at the proper interval. So it doesn't matter if it's delayed by a little bit with a repeater. It just means that your wall will build itself starting in the middle and going outwards over time. So that's neat. And that's the really nice thing about this design, is you can make it as big as you want. I haven't really figured out a solution for corners. If you were to make a city with this as like a wall generator for the city, but besides that, it's pretty sturdy. I've used a lot of obsidian here, and that's just because it has more contrast to basalt than cobblestone or other blocks do. It's also good for just safety. If you were to build this in like a survival world, you could layer obsidian over the top of your redstone structures and have all of this underground. So maybe then you have some, you have the actual ground right here. And so that way if they try and go under your wall, they're met with a big obsidian barrier. That also serves the purpose of protecting all your redstone. I had a couple different iterations of this idea. My first attempt at building a basalt wall generator was actually this design here, which is from a YouTube video, which I'll link in the description. It's pretty sweet. It uses an observer and a note block to detect when basalt has been generated, and then automatically push it away. And then you've got an observer set up over here that as soon as the last block of the bottom row has been generated, it activates pistons to push the entire row upwards. This has a couple of problems though. The first problem is that if the wall gets tall enough to where this last row reaches the 12 block push limit. Here, we'll just make sure. Once it reaches this level, then no more rows will be pushed up, even though all of this is missing, because it only pays attention to how complete this final row is. Just that's by nature of the observer. Also, it's very slow to repair itself, because it has to do it one row at a time. It has to do the entire row. Of course, this is really efficient materials-wise, because you only need to have one generator. All of my examples over there have one source block, lava source block, and one blue ice block for every single column. As you can see here, this is broken because the observer, none of this generates anymore because it thinks that the wall's done. It's not. And so if you break it now, it's not really going to repair itself. It's going to fix the bottom row and then it's going to stop. So that's the problem with this design, is that while it is cool and while it is cheap, it's not really effective for the purposes of a self-repairing wall. So then I tried this abomination over here, which had spaced columns. But this had a variety of problems, mostly redstone propagation issues, and I tried to stagger the different rows, and it didn't really work out very well. But I found this redstone clock thing with observers that was pretty cool, and a dispenser, but it's kind of loud. And so then this is where things started to get good. Is I figured, hey, I can make this a lot more compact, and I can just use torches and repeaters and blocks to make sure the pistons are alternating correctly. Like that. And that worked pretty well, but sometimes you get a weird issue where basalt, like this, basalt generates here, and then your entire column just breaks. You can't do anything. So you have to always be checking to make sure that's not happening. So that was an incomplete design. This over here was basically the same thing as that, but underground. Nothing interesting about that. And then this, I didn't even realize I was in a voice call. This is basically the same thing as that, but using slabs for better access to fix unwanted basalt issues. But it still suffered from basically the same issue of that happening. But I found that by adding another observer and a repeater on this setting to the timer, it kind of solved the issue. But it was also just a pain to build because everything has to be offset, staggered. And I was making a video explaining it, and I realized I didn't have to stagger these. If the ice blocks just had to be adjacent to the flowing lava, not adjacent to the soul soil, then I could put the ice on top. And I didn't realize this because this ice is actually meant for this basalt block. This basalt block gets its ice from, or I thought it got its ice from someplace else. Anyways, that's where this design comes in. There's a blue ice block above every single basalt block, and it doesn't need to be staggered. Instead, you just have this big thing. And also, this one's a bit more responsive. All these repeaters are at their lowest setting. These ones back here do have to be on this setting or higher, otherwise these pistons don't go off. The pulse isn't long enough, and the pulse ends before these actually have a chance to move after the horizontal pistons have retracted. So this is my best design so far.